Good evening, everyone. Hope you're having a good evening. Today is July 13th, 7 p.m. We're going to call this meeting to order, and I'd like you all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please stand for just 10 seconds of silence. Thank you. You may be seated. Deanne, will you call roll?
Vice Mayor Hall,
Here.
Commissioner Hanna,
Here.
Commissioner Nagel,
Here.
Commissioner Hausberg,
Here.
Mayor Kennedy.
Here. Thank you. With that, we'll go to presentations. Will the Sheriff's Department like to come forward and give a report?
Good evening.
Hi.
The statistics that I'm going to present are going to be for the month of May for 2021. The UCR Part 1 reporting crime, there were 5 assaults, which are also batteries. There's nothing significant to report on those. There was 1 burglary, and that was to an unoccupied residence. It's possible that it may have had something to do with a former tenant. And then there were 3 thefts, again, nothing significant on that. There were a total of 7 people arrested for open containers, domestic batteries, and a couple of DUIs. There were a total of 930 events for the month of May. Leading that were directed patrols and traffic enforcement. There were a total of 7 crashes in the city, and leading that would have been 415 2nd Street and Gulf and 5th Avenue. And then in addition and finally, there were 252 total citations and warnings issued. That also includes voting citations from the Marine Unit. And that's all.
Does anyone have any questions? Commissioner Hoffman?
Yeah, thank you for the report. My question is whether the open container ordinance, was that paired with another offense, or was that?
Truthfully, I can't answer that because without going into too much, or without doing a significant amount of research, usually, typically, on my shift, from what I see, is when the deputies are out doing foot patrol or beach patrol, occasionally they'll find somebody out there on the beach with an open container, or at some of the other city locations.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Anyone else have any questions for the Sheriff?
No.
Thank you.
thank you.
The report of Pinellas Suncoast Fire and Rescue is online. And with that, we're going to go to public comments. 3-minute limit per speaker. Any member of the audience may come forward. Please give your name, address, and state any comment or concern they may have regarding any matter over what the City Commission has control, excluding an agenda item for tonight. All statements made to the City Commission shall be made to the City Commission as a whole, not directed to an individual City Commission member, and no personal or slanderous remarks shall be permitted. No speaker shall be interrupted, and no debate shall take place between the speaker and the City Commission. Mayor Johnson?
Good evening, R.P. Johnson, 1206 Beach Trail. I'm here, and it's going to be very difficult in 3 minutes to say everything that I would ideally like to say, but I'm going to go as fast as I possibly can. I'm here to discuss the issue du jour, which seems to be the signing of what are called perpetual storm damage reduction easements in the city of Indian Rocks Beach, but also in Indian Shores and Raven Shores and other communities that are affected by beach renourishment. One of the reasons I'm standing here is my name keeps seeming to be pulled out in public in various forums, and people sometimes attributing to me opinions that may or may not actually be my opinions. So I figured I needed to come before the public and state a few things about the way I'm feeling about this subject right now. Let me very briefly just give a Cliff Notes version of what's going on. The Army Corps of Engineers, which has been essentially directing and building our beach renourishment projects for many years, going back to 1990-91, which is one, the latest series of major projects were undertaken, are now asking for perpetual easements from property owners who front the Gulf, so that they may have access to private property areas between the seawall and the erosion control line, which was the old high tide mark before they started any of these beach renourishment projects. Way back in 1990-91, when this was first undertaken, they got temporary easements from property owners. They did not get perpetual easements. They may not have been able to get those specifically, but they could have gotten some kind of easement in perpetuity or some kind of agreement, but they did not at that time ask for those types of agreements. And actually, for the next several series of renourishments, they declined to do it as well. So we had a series of renourishments where they brought sand in, and actually for Indian City of Indian Rocks Beach, for the vast majority of the city of Indian Rocks Beach, they actually not had to put sand anywhere near that private property line, the erosion control line, except in instances perhaps at the extreme north end of Indian Rocks Beach and at the south end, and even there in a very minimal capacity. So where we are now is that the Army Corps of Engineers has changed their mind, so to speak, or changed their policy, and it has to go back to Superstorm Sandy and also what's called WERDA, which is again, to legalese, basically it's a agreement whereby the Army Corps of Engineers has the ability to do a number of projects, but it essentially says you can't put or can't utilize public funds to put sand on private property. And after Superstorm Sandy, they really decided to go back and apply this policy across the board, and essentially now they're more or less retroactively asking us in Indian Rocks Beach to sign off these easements that they did not ask for way back when. So a lot of time has gone by, a lot of water over the dam, and the situation on the beach doesn't look anything like it did back in 1990-91 or 1985 when Hurricane Elena hit. So there is a very different beach situation out there. Now, I have a lot of ambivalent and mixed feelings about this entire situation. Unlike many people, I don't really believe or have a worry about the public use of the private property in front of my seawall. It really doesn't bother me, partly because before any of these beach renourishments, nobody really considered that area the private property, or at least acted like it was. And we tried to ban people from the beach when it was only 50 feet wide. From my property, they would be putting their beach towels and things and chairs right below my seawall. Now, if they were sitting on the seawall, which sometimes they did, they were on my private property. And sometimes they actually go above the seawall and into my yard. Now, that got irritating. But we don't really see much of that except in sporadic instances today. With a much wider beach, a significant dune system out there, et cetera, you don't see very much of that activity these days. And I personally am not upset about the notion that by signing these easements, we're somehow going to be taking away a right whereby activity is going to change drastically in that area, in that private property area. So that's really not something that's upset me. One thing that has upset me recently, and I actually originally was going to sign these easements way back when, and then because multiple family members had to sign off on them, they had to be notarized, and because of the pandemic and many of them being out of town and not traveling, I put off signing those easements. But as time went on, and I realized that the Army Corps of Engineers was being very adamant about the notion that they would not be renourishing unless they got 100% of the easements from all of these property owners, even if they weren't coming anywhere near the erosion control line or the private property, where, I've already said, in Indian Rocks Beach, for instance, for 95% of Indian Rocks Beach, they haven't needed to come anywhere near that line for many, many years, for basically 30 years. I don't like having a gun to my head. I understand some of the reasoning from the Army Corps of Engineers, and it's long-term reasoning. They're basically saying they have the authorization for this project to go right up to the seawall, but they can't pull the trigger on that authorization if so needed unless they have these easements where they can then put potentially at some point, if they needed to, this sand utilizing public funds on private property. I don't think that they should really, at this point, say, we're not going for the next renourishment unless we get all of these, even though we're not coming anywhere near that private property mark. They should have gotten these perpetual easements many years ago. And to let so much time go by and have so many people move here who don't realize how much the beach has changed and who buy into a beach that feels so different, I think it really messes up the works. It confuses people, and when they don't see the historical basis for what's going on here, and then saying this has to happen or otherwise it's not going to be renourished again immediately, I just think that's the wrong way to go about it. That being said, I think that this is something where, in the long run, the Army Corps of Engineers has a point in the sense that we could get whacked by a pretty big storm sometime this summer, for instance, and half the dunes could wash away, and then they would be back pretty close to the erosion control line, and then another storm could hit. And back when Elena hit in '85, we actually had 2 storms, Elena, and then a month later, tropical storm, I believe it was Juan. So we had one storm right after the other that compounded the damage that occurred from the first storm. So it's not inconceivable that relatively soon, or in the next few years, a series of storms could hit that could necessitate a placing of sand closer to or actually on areas that are considered to be private property. But it could be years and years could go by whenever that's the case. So I think I look at this as a situation where in the long run, the Army Corps of Engineers is right to a certain extent, but in the short run, I think they're wrong about the way they're going about this. I just think they're really making a mistake. Right now it seems to be a case of an irresistible force meeting an immovable object. Everybody has their reasons, whether they're signing or they're not signing. But I just want to state right now publicly that I am going to sign. In fact, I did sign today. This is one of the storm damage, perpetual storm damage reduction easement agreements. And I went and had it signed and notarized today because I do believe that in the long run, it may be a benefit to have these in place in case it's necessary to put sand back eastward or landward of the erosion control line or what's considered to be the private property line. I'm not blaming anybody publicly for not signing. I believe that there should be a way for them to renourish our beach without them, the Army Corps of Engineers, getting 100% of these easements signed. And I don't think people should be attacking other people for whether they're signing or they're not signing. But I do think in the long run, I don't have a personal problem with the language that's in here, the public use of that area below my seawall. There's almost nothing that you can do there anyways. Virtually nothing you can do other than protect the vegetation there that, by the way, is already protected by the state of Florida because the post-construction control line, which is another demarcation line, runs virtually along the seawall, and all the vegetation seaward of that line is protected by the state of Florida. There's almost nothing that you can do in that area. You can't build there. You can't put fences there. You can't do this. You can't do that. So it simply does not bother me like it bothers other people about the public using that area between the erosion control line and the seawall. But I have gone ahead and signed, and I just want that publicly known, and I'm stating here. And if somebody has questions to ask me after the meeting, or actually I may not be here after the meeting because I don't want to hang around all night, but they can ask me in other forums in other areas. So I just wanted to clear the air on that. So thank you.
Harvey, thank you so much for coming forward.
Sorry I'm talking for so
I
long.
appreciate that.
I just want to say
State your,
good evening.
tell
My
me-
name is Lauren Gala. I live at 520 2nd Street in New York Beach. And I'm about the renourishment. And I just wanted to let you know some key points. 5% of Florida shorelines are critically eroding. And this will affect our turtle nests. We play a primary role in hosting loggerhead turtles and also Kemp Wrigley's and green sea turtles and their nesting. So as our beaches erode, so will their nesting. More than a third of the state shoreline has lost ground over the past 5 decades. Florida's key brand and source of tourist revenue, is washing away. State receives more than $3 billion in sales from taxes during our tourist season, and without nourishment, we face coasts more vulnerable to hurricanes. Florida governor and lawmakers have allowed an annual backlog of unfunded beach projects to peak more than $80 million. We need to preserve IRB for someone like me who has young children. Thank you. Have a beautiful night.
Thank you for coming in tonight. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on tonight? Please come forward. Hi, Nancy.
Hello, everybody. Nancy Obarski, 708 Beach Trail. Thanks for giving RB that extra time. That was helpful. And the county is probably going to throw a party tomorrow morning because they have had no one signed since the end of last year. So that's a good thing for them. They actually got an easement. I woke up about 5 a.m. this morning to a Facebook post about the beach easements, and it had a little bit of misinformation in it, but I'm sure not blaming the poster because we just haven't been informed as to what's going on. I didn't go back to sleep, needless to say. It was likely the result of the post-Elsa news coverage that we got from Bay News 9 and Channel 10 over the last week. Bay News 9, they did it again, put the onus on us, the low-life, uncooperative beachfront property owners. Well, I think we need to agree on one thing. Even though RB did sign, and I respect him for his decision to do that, the signature train has left the station. There haven't been any new signers since the end of last year, and there's no way in hell we're going to get 100% of the signatures. So we need to forget the tendency to beat that dead seahorse and move on. We've got to figure out how to get some sand. It's going to take some serious pushback from the Army Corps of Engineers. I mean, let's face it. I complained today to the County Commission this afternoon about the lack of information on the status of the project. They're busy asking me to give up important property rights, but then I have to do internet searches to find out what's really going on, and haven't been even successful doing that. I appreciated the fact that Commissioner Janet Long asked the county administrator to give us an update today. She seemed concerned that we were insinuating they had done nothing to help. She said that she stood on Indian Rocks Beach with our mayor and Charlie Crist, which, I applaud the effort, but surely she doesn't think that the situation's going to get resolved simply by showing up. I hope not, because we need some fighters. We need some people that are going to go out there that aren't going to be afraid to ruffle the feathers of the Army Corps of Engineers and take them to task, even if it's legal action that's required here. What I see coming down the pike here is more divisiveness, which is about the last thing we need in this country. I mean, the beach belongs to all of us. We need to stick together. We need to. There was a person who posted to that post this morning that said, "How thoughtless of those few," meaning the people that didn't sign. Well, this few is 59% of the people that were asked for the. So that's really not the few. I think last time I checked, that's called the majority. Anyway, we need to fight back. We need to take some information, even if it's that brochure that you all have the information, and start asking some questions of the preparers of that, and see if there's anything in there you can use to go back against the Army Corps. Signatures aren't the way. Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward at this time? Hi, John.
Hey, Townhouse 2104 Beach Trail. Yeah, I was at that kind of meeting also, and what I said was, we're just, no one talks to us. I mean, it was great that the commissioner, the mayor, Charlie Crist was there. Which one of them had any skin in the game? Nobody had any property on the Gulf. Nobody had to sign away their rights. Y'all can sit there and slap each other on the back all you want. Why don't you get some of the people that actually live on the water involved in the situation? I told the county commission, we're being lectured to. Every time we go there, it's an hour and 45 minutes. Oh, it's great. We got to understand it does this, da 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 da. And John Bishop yesterday, when he was on TV, he says the wide beach is what protects us in case of a hurricane. Wide beach doesn't do anything. It just, if the water comes up a foot higher than the seawall, it's all going to come in. And I said at the county commission meeting, I have two really bad neighbors that as soon as it gets to the seawall, it's coming right over, and there's nothing stopping it. And by the way, it's the city of Indian Rocks Beach. At the crossovers, there's nothing stopping the water coming through there. The point of defense for the rest of the mainland is my house and my neighbor's house. That's the thing that's going to slow the thing down. It's not going to be a mile wide beach. The beach is getting, and I don't know, you know, I have to agree with almost everything Harvey said, except for sign. But I mean, the people used to come and sit on our seawall, and we would talk to them. And it wasn't, you know, it was nice people. We weren't having the trash that we're having out there now. It was a whole different crew. You know, this free for me. It's just getting ridiculous, which is my other point tonight. You know, when they were marking nests, they missed one, and I have the proof of it. And you can see where the little hatchlings came out this whole area. I mean, who would open a beer can on the top and then open on the bottom also? I mean, there's no reason to do that, is there? But anybody ever go to college? Okay, never mind. So anyway, so there was 5 of these buried in front of my house, halfway buried. I mean, how hard is it? They spent more energy trying to halfway bury 5 beer cans instead of. And it happened, they were parking overnight in the place where they don't have to have anything to do it. I went to, they were out on the beach about midnight and all that. And the next morning, here was this nest of camelins. So it's gotten so bad that one of the people that lives right there on Yongo calls it the 21st Avenue campground. People are camping in there overnight. And what bothers me about the way the commission and the city runs the place is that nobody listens to anybody that has anything to do. Everybody that lives west of Gulf Boulevard that came to this meeting, all the stuff about parking, the solution was hang tags. That was it. I don't need 3 or 4 different decals. You know, I need, if one time, just have a hang tag, and that's what everybody said. If we had company, just have a hang tag. Now, instead of doing that, you give it where anybody can park.
You need to wrap it up, Don.
I got 7 more minutes.
No, you don't. I run the meeting. I gave RB time.
Oh, so you're showing priority?
I run the meetings. Wrap it up.
Okay, here's the wrap up. All right, let's go back to the easements. Never mind, I'm not going to say anything.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to come forward tonight?
Good evening, Jose Coffin,
Hi,
Gulf
Jose.
Boulevard. A lot at the beach had been subject to the request for easements since 4 years ago in 2017, before the 2018 renourishment. I approached the Pinellas representative and the Corps of Engineers in a meeting held here in Largo, and I explained to them that thanks to the vegetation, I had a 10-foot dune that was way beyond the elevation that they said they would take it to the erosion control line. And I said the dune is seawards of the erosion control line. They said, well, we need it for access to the equipment. I said, how come you don't, what equipment are you using? And explain to me why you need now access to the equipment. Oh no, because we're going to put some material there in the beach that, I said, you have more than 50 feet, what do you need for it? And then they say, well, you will be violating federal law because the Water Resource Development Act of 1983 says we cannot place sand in public property. And I said, that's fine, because the erosion control line is the state-defined limit of where my property ends. I no longer have riparian rights, which the lot used to have, because they put the erosion control line. So now the erosion control line to the channel is private property, except the easement on Gulf Boulevard. And subsequently, I look at the certified drawings, and they prohibit the contractor to place any sand on private property without the specific authorization of the representative of the Corps of Engineers. So they are really lying. All of the argument that they pose is truly lies, and to me that's a land grab. And I'm not signing it because they don't need it. In fact, my position is, and I tried to talk to Bishop about how inefficient the system is that of this beach renourishment. They should be, with the advances in computer and simulation, they could be simulating what the currents are in Indian Rocks Beach and Sankey, and like a contractor in Indian Shores presented some artificial islands in which they can, the natural habitat, it can become natural habitat for a lot of birds and turtles. They keep repeating the same thing, and that's not going to go anywhere. I think the next renourishment, if it happens, is going to be the last renourishment, because now, with all of the infrastructure needs, money is going to be diverted more toward hard projects, not just the beach. But I'm surprised and I'm disappointed that the elected officials and the press had kept quiet for so long. These people in New Jersey, for example, they had easements, but the easements that they wrote were, if you didn't get any sand, they'll give you back the easement. They have not extended the courtesy to us in here, that if we didn't get the sand, and you can get the easement back. No, it's a permanent easement.
Jose, you have to wrap it up.
Pardon?
You have to wrap it up, your 3 minutes are done.
Okay. Thanks.
But we understand, I know where you're coming from. Thank you for coming in tonight. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward? Hi, Scott.
Mike Mancho, no. Scott Shapiro, 2032 20th Avenue Parkway. Wow, it's been a long time since I've been here. 3 years last time, red tide. Time's gone by fast. I've been here 20 years in June. It's a great city. And coming from California, where we have beaches, sand is never an issue. The beaches are wide. And when I moved to Florida after college, I always said, location, 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 but also they're not making any more sand. I want to be as close to the water and beach as possible. But I realized after living in Florida, they're moving sand. And that was a foreign object to me. And I'm grateful that we had all those renourishments. I just want to acknowledge, I'm probably going to go over my 3 minutes. I do have my nephew visiting from Florida State with his fraternity brother, and so they said that they'd give me their 3 minutes if I need it. I'm going to probably try and be close to it. So I know your time is valuable, and I thank you. I want to congratulate you guys for a difficult decision you guys made a few years ago regarding fireworks. I think that we saw a lot less trash this year, and while I missed the rockets' red glare, the noise and the trash was not missed. So thank you for that. So why am I here? Why am I here? Sand, sand, we need sand, 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 we want sand, 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 give it to us, man. Indian Rocks Beach was incorporated in 1956, which makes us a senior citizen eligible for Social Security. IRB was here long before us and will be here after all of us. Indian Rocks Beach has been continuously nourished since 1988. Approximately $9 billion has been spent to rebuild America's beaches since 1923. Prior to 1988, the tide did reach all the way up to the seawalls, which some of you have lived here long enough to remember. RB mentioned something to that effect. It's a proven fact that beach nourishment will reduce coastal storm damage to homes, businesses, and critical infrastructure, mitigate future land loss, maintain recreational value, and demand for the beach. This action will benefit sea turtles, as was mentioned, shorebirds, and other wildlife. This action will benefit our local economy by maintaining the area as a year-round tourist destination and support related businesses and jobs. Failure to renourish will result in severe beach and dune erosion, destruction of property, wildlife habitat, loss of recreation area, and result in a large negative impacts to our tourist-based economy. In the last 8 months, we had 2 named storms impact our local beaches, Ada and Elsa. I went to the beach at low tide yesterday and saw tidal rivers that now exist where dry sand once stood. Today I saw the high tide and the beach is narrower than it's been since our last nourishment. This is not a political issue. This isn't red versus blue. This is a pending environmental crisis right at our front door. The issue before us today is, in my opinion, the most crucial of the last 20 years that I've lived here in IRB. And it's detrimental to our longevity as the pearl of Indian Rocks Beach of Pinellas County. This is not personal. I'm not attacking those on the other side of the issue. I only have issue with their reasoning and argument. With that said, the city, county, state, federal government, Army Corps of Engineers is not taking anything from anyone, full stop. The plain reading of the perpetual storm damage reduction easement states the purpose is public use and there will be no taco stands or other commercial enterprises or construction of any permanent structures. In fact, the grantee states that it's solely for activities necessary for construction and operation of beach nourishment. So I just don't understand how we can be in jeopardy of losing our upcoming beach renourishment. I don't understand how a vocal minority can hold our beach and city hostage and create a possible future harm to them and the city itself.
Mr. Chairman, before you continue, you represented that there's 2 people here who are yielding their time to you. I'd like them to affirmatively state as much, because I don't know that the record, for the sake of the record for you to
Yeah, I yield my time to Scott Shapiro.
And what's your name, sir?
Zachary Ford.
Okay. Is there anybody else who's doing that, sir?
If I need it, Patrick, but I don't think I'll need it.
Okay, well, we'll go on your statement, sir. You may continue. Apologies.
Where was I? No, sorry about this. I don't understand how less than 1% of our population can dictate the environmental, fiscal, and future success of Indian Rocks Beach. Unfortunately, the majority who live in IRB also live east of Gulf Boulevard and have no idea this is even an issue. I heard comments last month asking the city to do a better job of fighting, and I agree. I agree. The city must keep the shield but ready the sword. This is not a time to sit back and do nothing. You do not want to be known as the elected officials, city manager, and officers who fail to secure our city's much-needed sand. I'm a huge advocate of private property rights, but here in this case there is no taking, and thus is an issue of public interest versus private property rights. Since the nourishment began, the ECL and mean high tide line has continually moved west, past what was once submerged lands. I believe the issue has been asked and answered in the courts. I believe that we can establish there is no taking since the existing dry sand is public and established by ancient and customary use. We have more beach access and parking than most cities in Florida, therefore the dry sand is not private. I implore the city to use every available asset to explore every available remedy under the law for the city, county, state, and others to secure and prevail in our much-needed beach nourishment. I ask those who refuse to sign if they're willing to vacate the right to file a flood claim should one occur from coastal flooding. I think that's only fair since it could be argued that they may have contributed to their own harm. I understand from comments at the last meeting there are cities in other states who did nothing and allowed those who refused to sign to dictate policy, which cost them their publicly funded sand. This cannot happen in IRB. This cannot happen in IRB. We are better than this. You are better than this. So I just want to close with this. This sand is your sand, this sand is my sand, from Whitehurst Avenue to 28th Ave, from Harbor Drive north to Indian Shores. This sand is paid by you and me. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
I'm going to condemn the people who were with you for not dropping a beat.
Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward at this time?
Yes, my name is Hugh Smith. Live at 20202 Gulf Boulevard, Indian Shores. We applaud and want sand. Beach renourishment is good. However, the attempt by the Army Corps of Engineers to take private property, turn it over for public use with no compensation whatsoever for an easement they do not need is flat out wrong. We authored, my wife and I, the booklet you've received, or many of the beachfront owners have received. In that booklet, we did a detailed study of Florida law on the issues presented. We established that, for example, these rights go all the way back to the Constitution of the state of Florida. And the most important one of the rights that these beachfront owners have is the right to exclude others from that area that is private property. It's very important. Public is not always nice. There can be nice people. By the same token, they can also leave noise, traffic, trash behind, that sort of thing. Be that as it may, if, and the law of the state of Florida is very clear, if you need to take private property for public use, there is a legal way to do it, and that's condemned. My point here is that the Army Corps of Engineers is an administrative agency of the Department of Defense. It's a rogue agency as described by many. They came up with an arbitrary rule that has no foundation in federal law. The references to the Water Resources and Development Act are false. It's a misreading of the act altogether. The point of my great presentation here today is to acknowledge that nourishment is great, but the fault lies not with the property owners, but with our county government and those in governmental positions who will not take on the Army Corps of Engineers and fight for the rights of the beachfront owners.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward tonight during public comment? Yes, ma'am. Hi.
My name is Wendy Lee, and I just found out about this meeting thanks to a post on the Facebook page
Can
by
you tell us what your address is, please?
1214 Bay Palm Boulevard, right down the street. And I just wanted to speak up because I love Indian Rocks Beach. I'm sitting here looking at this flag, and it literally says Indian Rocks Beach, which is why I moved here. Coincidentally, it was 10 years ago today that I found my paradise here on this street. And I love this city, and I love riding my bike over to the beach. And it wasn't until I saw Jackson's post about photos of what it looked like years ago when there was no beach for me, and it made me very sad. And I've watched RB and Sarah lovingly take care of the beach, watering the dunes one by one, day by day, and I'm here to say, what can we do? We've all talked about the problems, but I'm asking, what are the solutions, and what can we do to change things? We can't just accept things, we've got to find that common ground and find the answer. And they say do the best you can until you know better, and when you know better, do better. So I'm asking that we all do better.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward at this time?
Good evening. I'm Diana Fuller from 20202 Gulf Boulevard, the wife of Hugh Smith in Indian Shores. I would just like to talk a moment about the presentations that various people are making and the facts that people are putting forth that oftentimes are skewed one way or the other, depending on your viewpoint. My main concern about all of this is the misrepresentations that are being put forth by the Army Corps of Engineers and some of the local materials and some of the county commission or county materials, specifically being sent to our mailboxes, where they tell us that this policy has been in effect forever, they're just now enforcing it. And while it may be a policy, it's not written anywhere, except on the website. It's not in the Code of Federal Regulations. It's not in the statute. But it's being touted, and everybody just accepts as true. The Army Corps of Engineers is not going to provide sand unless these easements are submitted by 100% of the homeowners on the beach. They say that as fact, and they say in the mailings to us that that's the law, and it's not. They say enough misinformation that we can have a post like this morning saying that these greedy, inconsiderate beachfront owners are denying access to place the sand on the beach. And to the extent that someone can post that, undoubtedly believing it, it's not true. That's not what the issue is. The real issue here is the public use. And every single person on that beach is in a different position from every single other person on that beach. Some of them think that property rights are paramount, the foundation of this country. I happen to be one of those. Others think that the public good requires that the beachfront owners make a sacrifice of their property. But the fact of the matter is 59% of people, after 2 years of attempted persuasion, don't agree with that. And I would like to just remind you all that you represent us. And 59% of us have said this isn't the way to go. Now, I agree with everybody else who said, don't just sit here and complain and moan, but come up with a solution. And one of those solutions is at least to get to the bottom of the Army Corps of Engineers position that this is mandated by federal law. It's not. If it were, we would not have had beach renourishments going back to 1988. And while some people here are saying and acknowledging that the water came all the way up to the seawall before all these storms, it didn't in my place. It didn't on Indian Shores. It didn't anywhere in the middle of Indian Shores. We did not ever have water up to our seawalls. The erosion control line is an approximation of where the water used to come. We've gotten sand, our dunes have gotten higher, but the water was never in danger of coming up to our seawall. So I'm just suggesting that in your publications,
wrap it up.
in your publications and in your meetings at the Big C, when you all have an opportunity to talk to the county commissioners and state your positions, at least encourage honesty so that your public can take an informed position. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to come up at this time? Hi, Jackson.
Hey, I'm Jackson Tenney. I live at 125th Avenue, Indian Rocks Beach. I don't have much to say. I came here to kind of just take everything in and learn as much as I can because I've been confused myself. What I do know is living here the last 25 years, being somebody who has watched every single hurricane very, very closely because I enjoy waves and I enjoy staying safe as well, is that once we reach the end of the threshold, like I believe they do beach renourishment every 5 years. Once we get to the end where it comes time to renourish the beach again, it's always been something in the back of my head that thinks I really hope that one storm doesn't come now. And it seems like if we miss this threshold for the beach renourishment and we have to wait 10 years, I don't want to know what the beach is going to look like then. Because just watching what one storm can do after the last renourishment, seems like right when it was finished we had a huge storm. And we lost more sand than I've ever seen off the beach relatively quickly. And I think because that storm hit at such a perfect time after the beach was finished, that's why there's so little sand now, at least in my eyes. We had water up to the sea oats this last storm. I was out on the beach in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. just checking on everything, seeing how it was going. I've seen water come up to the seawall at 25th Avenue before, to where it was a couple inches from the top, almost in my backyard. I think it's ridiculous to say that beach renourishment isn't crucial to prevent water from coming into our backyards, because the way waves work is they can only get so high based on how deep the water is, and so long as there's enough sand, it keeps the sandbar shallow enough to where it protects us from storm surge. So that's kind of the only comment that I have. It's something that I've been watching my entire life, and I think that if we don't have the beach renourished until 2030, it's going to be really bad. So that's about it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jackson. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward at this time? Please come forward. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. We are going to, we're going to go to the report of the city attorney. Do you have any reports tonight?
Yes, Madam Mayor, this past weekend I had the fortune to attend the Florida Municipal Attorneys Association conference with the benefit of the knowledge and information relayed by municipal attorneys from across the state. One of the points I'd like to sensitize you to in terms of the legislative session having been complete now and as bills continue to trickle towards the governor's office, the home-based business bill we've previously discussed has since been signed by the governor, along with the amendments to the Byrd-Harris Act. I believe that was also signed by the governor. I've already communicated my concerns to you on the 5 to 10 year outlook on what that will do for residential zoning throughout the state, not just in this community. And that is my personal legal interpretation of that, not necessarily something broader, but there continues to be, as we've seen in dialogue tonight, a very emphatic statements and codifications of the private property rights and memorializing them. So as, for example, one of the other amendments that came through is when the city moves forward with its next round of amendments to its comprehensive plan, which are ordinarily amended every 7 years, that is now a legal requirement. There be a section making statements about private property rights and their sacrosanct status within the state. So that's memorialized there, in addition to the various places where it's stated in statute otherwise. Apart from the recent legislative session, I continue to work with your manager, though it was not spoken about. I know it was an issue of concern relative to fireworks, and we actually have a meeting with the sheriff's office next week to discuss the policies, implementation, and enforcement in this community particularly as we move forward, and how that aligns with our ordinances, which we've seen success with in past years and events. Otherwise, we continue to collaborate from the staff side. If there's anything else I can address, I'm happy to do so. Thank you very much.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions for the city attorney at this time? The city manager is out tonight, and I'll read a few things from his report. But before I do, I just would like to make a comment that I would normally make during my comments. For several months since, I would say during the pandemic, we have been in discussions with Congressman Chris' office, and also working to try to we've had discussions with the Corps of Engineers, and I want all of you to know that so that you know what we have been doing. And after this last storm, when we've lost more sand, I reached out again to the congressman, and as of yesterday, he is on the Appropriations Committee at the federal government, and we will be the recipient of $900,000, which will be, it was a request from Congressman Chris, who serves on the Appropriations Committee. This $900,000 this will be, the project will fund design and engineering activities for the Sand Key, Treasure Island, and Long Key segments of the Pinellas County Shore Protection Project in order to align design of the Sand Key segment with the 2 Pinellas segments also scheduled for design in 2022. Aligning design and engineering work will promote efficiency and save taxpayer money. In addition, keeping the Pinellas County Shore Protection Project on track for the next scheduled nourishment will support the regional economy, provide habitat for threatened and endangered species, and protect lives and infrastructure from storm damage, thereby saving taxpayer money in post-disaster costs. So the point of that is it will now go before the Senate and the House at the federal level, and we are feeling very confident that that will be passed. This is very good news for us because as we move ahead, the second in command at the Corps of Engineers is being replaced. There is a replacement, and the new person has been appointed by President Biden and will take office in August. So we are continually to work on this very diligently in our city, and we will definitely keep you abreast as time goes on. I wanted to mention that. With that, I'm going to go to the city manager's report. First, I just want to mention that the budget and work session will be scheduled for July 20th at 4 p.m. and that we will also on July 20th at 7 p.m. we will be setting the tentative millage rate. He wanted us to know that the Gulf Boulevard undergrounding phase 1, that part will be complete with a punch list by August 6th. He and I have also been in conversations since the Surfside disaster, the condominiums there, and I just kind of I had to write a paper in my class, and one of the things that we found out is if anyone who is in an aging condo has concerns that they have the opportunity to reach out to the county, who will then notify the condominium association to do investigations of those condos. So I think the county, our county, who we will be worried about because of the condos that are in our area, are working diligently, and if anyone does have any concerns, you can send your emails to our city, and then we will forward them to the county, or you can contact the county on your own. With that, I'm going to go to the city commission, and we will start with Vice Mayor Hannah. Do you have any?
Former Vice Mayor. Yes.
Who's Vice Mayor?
Who's Vice Mayor? You Vice Mayor? I gave it up for Lynn.
Oh,
I gave
okay.
it.
There you go. Excuse me. Why do you keep letting me tell everyone that?
I kind of enjoy it. That's how it goes.
Deborah wants to give it up.
All
Okay.
right. Very quickly, I was pleased to represent the city commission and the city at the grand opening of Groupers on the Gulf this last Saturday. They had a tremendous grand opening. It's at 1401 Gulf Boulevard. I was in there, actually had a sandwich today, which was very good. And Mike and his family are very, very happy with what they're doing. They had a tremendous grand opening, as I mentioned, and would encourage you to go in and support them. And that's all I have.
Commissioner? I don't have anything this evening. Okay. Commissioner Holton?
I have no report, and thank you.
Vice Mayor? Bob? Sorry about that. Didn't mean to slight you.
but although I
Your
didn't...
3 minutes are up.
Hey!
So I have to tell you.
Even though I didn't have lunch with Phil, you know, that was disappointing at Groupers.
Okay.
Yeah, fantastic family-owned business over there.
Yep.
Absolutely love them. But no particular report at this point. I appreciate it.
Again, thank you for going to the Groupers for us.
Great time.
I had to go to a funeral, so that was why I wasn't there. But I want to appreciate everybody who came in and gave their thoughts tonight. The commission very much appreciates all of the concerns, and we are constantly reviewing and trying to do the best we can for the city of Ross Beach. With that, are there any additions and deletions tonight? Hearing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. Would you please read the consent agenda? Mr. Mora.
Happily, Madam Mayor, there are 3 items on the consent agenda. The first item, item A, authorizing the city manager to sign a 1-year agreement to renew group health coverage with Public Risk Management PRM Group Health Trust for fiscal year 2021-2022. Item B, reappointing regular board member Rick Alvarez and appointing Michael A. Campbell as the first alternate board member to the Board of Adjustment and Appeals for 3-year terms expiring June 30, 2024. Item C, approval of the June 8, 2021 regular city commission meeting minutes. This is a full reading of items A through C on the consent agenda, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
And is there a second?
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda stands approved, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We're going to go on to 6A, public hearings, BOA case number 2021-05, 306 Bahia Vista. Randy, could you read this?
Happily, Madam Mayor, before we begin, please be advised, Commission, we are transitioning from reports and legislative acts to quasi-judicial hearing. As you are well aware, in a quasi-judicial posture, you are not making the law, but rather applying the law to the competent substantial evidence and testimony provided to you this evening. That said, the first item is Board of Adjustment case number 2021-05 for 306 Bahia Vista Drive. Considering a variance request from section 94-86 of the Code of Ordinances to allow a dock to encroach 6 feet into the 12-foot side yard setback for the installation of new boat lift for the property located at 306 Bahia Vista Drive, Indian Rocks Beach, Florida, and legally described as Bahia Vista Subdivision, Lot 6 and part of Water Lot A, lying within the side lot lines, extended northerly according to the plat thereof, recorded in Plat Book 31, page 26 of the Public Records of Pinellas County, Florida, parcel number 12 30 14 02394 0000060. This is the item before the body. As we continue, it is my duty to ask first if any member of this commission has had any ex parte communications with the applicant or their agent concerning the relief requested this evening.
No.
No. The record reflect all have responded in the negative. Has any member of this body conducted a site visit for the limited purpose of evaluating the application? That is, you went to or passed by the property to inform your decision making this evening, not your general awareness as a member of the community? No. Having all responded to the negative, will any person who intends to offer any testimony before this body concerning this application, including staff, the applicant, their agent, or any member of the community, please stand and raise your right hand at this time? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you are giving this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. With that, we will begin with staff's presentation. Ms. Harmon?
The property is located at 306 Bahia Vista Drive. He's asking.
Sorry, Ms. Harmon, can you move the mic to, sorry.
He's requesting a variance from the side lot to install a boat lift. On this picture here, he wants to install it on the left side of the existing dock. He will keep the existing boat at the end. The boat you see here on the right will actually go to the left on a lift, is what he's requesting. So he would be ending up with a 6 foot from the property lines, on there. The property owner on the left did sign off on that. The staff did recommend approval. The Board of Adjustment recommended denial on a vote to 3-1. So, do you have any questions?
Are there any questions of staff at this time? Seeing none, the applicant, sir, it's your opportunity to come forward and make your case to this body why you should be granted the relief requested.
Please give us your name and your address.
My name is Steve Levine, 306 Bahia Vista Drive, Indian Rocks Beach. So I have a 56-foot wide lot. My setbacks are 12 feet on each side. That's 24 feet. That leaves me 32 feet. So it equals 42% of my property that I can't even use. Now, I bought this place to use it for waterfront usage, my boating, my livelihood, and because I love Indian Rocks Beach as a little kid. I was born in St. Petersburg, came out here when I was about 8 years old. There's a wonderful candy store down there called Pueblo Village I hung out at, and got in trouble riding my bike out here when I was like 11 years old when my parents found out. I always wanted to live here. I bought my house in October of '84, and I have lived in it ever since and raised my family there. I feel that having a well-lifted boat is safer than having a boat hanging on davits, which is what we have right now. Because I did have there were 2 permits issued for the history of the house with davits. When I bought the property, there were davits on the seawall and the dock. To make it safer, my wife and I feel that if we invest in a lift, it will help this old man from falling down and breaking bones and having a deductible. So that's pretty much my story. I'm asking for 6 feet. Nobody in the neighborhood responded to say no. My neighbor next door to me, she has poles within 6 feet of my property, and I have no problem with that. So I think that it's, you know, it would be a blessing for you to give me the variance, and nobody has come forward and said otherwise. I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. And,
Steve, I'm going to ask the commission if they have any questions for you. Does
Okay,
anyone
thank you.
have any questions for Steve before I go out to the public? Anyone have any questions for Steve? I'll have you sit right here,
okay.
and then we'll have you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone who has any comments on this variance? If you'd like to come forward, please come forward now. Hearing none. I'd ask you for rebuttal, but since there isn't anybody
At
to.
this point, does staff have anything
Staff,
else they wish
anything?
to say?
I do not have anything to add.
Just like we did about an hour ago, sir, you get the last word.
Yes, come on up. If
If
there's
you have
anything else
anything
you want
else
to
you wish to
say.
add, you don't have to speak if you don't wish to.
I appreciate what all you guys are doing in the care with the Indian Rocks Beach. I think it's one of the coolest spaces on the planet. I plan to live here till the end. And I do want to get involved more to try to help the process along. And I do appreciate what your service to the community and to Indian Rocks Beach. Thank you very much, all of you, because I know it's a lot of time and effort and expertise.
So we're gonna get a boat ride, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions with the commission? Hearing none, do I hear?
Actually, just real quick, so is that davit still there? Is that what you're replacing? The davit on the right side of the pier?
Yes. Right side.
Or the way I'm looking at it from the water?
Here, left your like it here, right, with davits over here someplace.
There's a davit on the other side.
Yeah, there's davits on the left side there. There's one on the corner of the property line that's been there forever, and then there's one on the dock where I've been hanging the boat.
And that's what you're looking to replace?
Yes, sir.
Beautiful.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve BOA 2021-05.
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and a second. Do you have any comments to make on the motion?
No.
A second? Anyone else have any questions at this time, any on the motion? Okay, hearing none, Deanne, would you call the roll?
Vice Mayor McCall,
Approved.
Commissioner Nagel,
Yes.
Commissioner Hausberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Hannah,
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes. Motion carries. Good luck, Steve.
Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate your
coming in
service.
tonight.
Very
Thank
much
you.
so. Thank you.
With that, we're going to move on to 6B, BOA case number 2021-06-378, La Hacienda Drive. Randy, could you please introduce this agenda item?
Happily, Madam Mayor, this is Board of Adjustment case number 2021-06 concerning 378 La Hacienda Drive, considering a variance request from section 110-131-1F2I of the Code of Ordinances of a range from 12 feet to 5.5 feet for a length of 22 feet into the required 25-foot rear yard setback, resulting in a total rear yard setback of a range from 13 feet to 19.5 feet for a length of 22 feet, to allow for a covered porch on the rear of the house for the property located at 378 La Hacienda Drive, Indian Rocks Beach, Florida, and legally described as La Hacienda, first edition and part of Water Lot C, in front of 14.5 feet times 115 feet TA on east side of Lot 61, recorded thereof, recorded in Plat Book 43, page 14 of the Public Records of Pinellas County, Florida, parcel number 07-30-15-47394, 000-0600. Before we begin, just as in the previous case, this remains a quasi-judicial matter where you are applying the law to the evidence and criteria provided. With that in mind, has any member of this body had any ex parte communications with the applicant or their agent? No. Having all responded in the negative, has any member of this body done a site visit for the limited purpose of evaluating this application?
No.
Having all responded in the negative, will anybody who intends to offer any testimony this evening on this application please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you are going to give before this body is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Thank you very much. You may be seated. With that, Ms. Harmon, if you could please present the staff's recommendation on this.
The property is located at 378 La Hacienda Drive, at the very end of the street on a curve on that lot. There you can see it here, and then again a little closer up. The lot is a pie shape. The house is parallel with one of the property lines. Okay, and this is the survey of the existing property. And what they are working on right now is on the front of the house to extend it. They're also requesting to extend a roof over the rear patio. And the proposed site plan would have the roof extending over the existing patio, following the line of the existing house. Part of the house already exists, is already encroaching into the rear yard setback, and they wanted to follow that along and cover their porch there. At this point, with the post right here, it's about 13 feet. And then we have some pictures that show that they just start building the column. What they're planning to do is actually raise up the roof, so they'll have higher ceilings in the house, and then that roof will come over to that pillar there. And just some different pictures of the existing house. The staff does recommend approval of this because due to the shape of the lot and the existing house on the lot. The Board of Adjustment also recommended approval from a vote of 3-1.
And I believe that we did get some correspondence from
Oh,
Bob
yes.
Griffin that he also agreed that he was in approval.
There's one neighbor who submitted an objection to the application, and others who submitted, which is in your application, your
Right, yeah.
agenda materials, submitted their support. The remaining letters were in support. There was one in opposition. Are there any other questions for staff at this time? Hearing none, it's now the applicant's opportunity to make its case before this body.
State your name and your address, please.
Certainly. My name is Carolyn Meadows. I'm an attorney appearing on behalf of the property owners of 378 La Hacienda Drive, Indian Rocks Beach. And the property owners' names, Mr. Elias and Alexandra Leosis are here obviously with me this evening. We want to thank you, the staff, for the report, and let you all know that we actually agree with the report and are here to only add a few comments and be available for any questions should the commission have questions. Our client began the review and the permit process in late 2020. He was issued the building permit based on the same set of plans that he initially had submitted. The only change during that time period was a technical correction requested by the staff, which was complied with. He began construction after nearly 6 months of review. He's passed actually 4 inspections prior to the stop work order that was issued at the end of May. The property passed a footing inspection, a fill cell inspection, and 2 column inspections prior to the stop work order. He has not violated the stop work order, and the majority of what he is doing is actually in the front of the home. The area in question is in the rear of the home and actually constitutes a small portion of the overall project. But that small portion of the project is significant in that it's tied into the roof truss plan and the overall structural integrity of the home that is, of course, dependent on that truss plan. After the work commenced, the integration of the column into the roof truss system, which was in the plans originally and which was in the plans that were approved, it became evident to the city, and that even though those had been originally included in the information provided to the city, Now that the stop work order is in place, the house is actually structurally unsafe and structurally compromised to an extent until the work can resume and things can get moving forward again. And of course, there's a concern, obviously, that we're in the middle of the hurricane season at this point. And the client is actually facing undue hardship, believes that he does meet the criteria for section 2.152 as laid out in the staff report. And of note, as was mentioned by Mr. Mora, there were several neighbors that did provide support for the project, with one raising some objections, but again, that's in the packet for the commission to review. And also, for the commission to consider, he's not requesting a height variance. He's not seeking to enclose the area, which is an important part of the project, or important thing to consider of the project, because he's never requested that that area be enclosed, and he's actually would be happy to memorialize this as a covenant running with the deed to make sure that this is not ever enclosed without the commission's consent and approval. There is a photograph that might be helpful in demonstrating what we are requesting. It's one of the June 23rd photographs that shows the column. And just to point out that that area that's open now will continue to be open. That's not going to be an enclosed area at all. So that might be helpful in envisioning what we're trying to do. And so we would essentially just request that the commission grant the request for variance and allow the project to resume work and move forward to stabilize that roof and just to let it go forward as it was originally permitted.
Thank you. Does anyone on the commission have any questions for the applicant? Yes.
I'm not understanding the nature of the structural instability right now.
Actually, part of the roof has been removed in anticipation of and I don't believe that you would be able to see it in this photograph, but it's my understanding that part of the roof has been removed in preparation for the next step in the project, and that does include some additional truss work.
Okay,
Yes.
that's not clear in the picture.
Certainly. And,
Yes, come forward, please, and state your name again.
My name is Elias Leosis. I am the owner of 378 Hacienda Drive. I'm sorry, I didn't want to come up here because I'm very nervous about this. This is my home. I've been a resident of Indian Rocks Beach for the past 26 years. We bought the home in 2005 and kind of did our first stage of renovations. I've raised my kids in there with my wife. We love our house. We ain't going anywhere. The only thing that we found wrong, and this all started because my wife needed a walk-in closet, which is, and
that's it.
And it started from there. And,
it's all good. It's all good.
Everything else doesn't matter. It's the closet, yeah.
So most of the work, and when we started doing the renovations, this is an older home. It was built in the 60s. All the older homes had low ceilings. We bought the home because of where it is, and we appreciate the view. It took me 15 years owning the home to get the wherewithal and the resources to do what we're doing now. And the way the project is being staged, we're going to end up exposing the home to weather, unfortunately. When I applied for the permit, it was back in October of 2020. And I'm thinking, okay, a couple of months, we'll get in there, we'll get our permit by January. Still gives me 2-3 months of the dry season to kind of dry in the place and move on with our project. Unfortunately, the process took a little bit longer, and we ended up, after applying 1st of October, we finally got our permit on the 30th of March. So at that point, we started construction, knowing full well we were kind of racing hurricane and storm season. Nonetheless, we started our process, and anybody that knows the way things have been going as far as materials and all that, there's been delay after delay. And we ordered the trusses, and we have to wait, unfortunately, for the trusses. And then we go through our inspections. We did as much work as possible without exposing the house to weather. Because most of the work is at the front, so we poured our footers and did our slabs and all that. And went through our inspections, and after the 4th inspection, I was told, oh, you can't, and this is one of the inspections that passed, actually, that pillar, or the column that was shown there. Because we had a fill inspection, and then we were to pour it. And the inspector that came from the county said, well, you're fine to pour it, but you have to pour it on your own risk, because you can't proceed. So we stopped work at that point, and here we are. We obviously have to get a variance. We approached all our neighbors. Nobody seems to have a problem with it. One of the neighbors who didn't actually approve what we're doing wanted to point out, he was more upset that it wasn't picked up, that the variance process should have been done right at the outset rather than at this point, 5 months after we've done our construction. Anyways, that being said, here we are, and I agree with the staff, what the staff is recommending. Obviously, they're recommending that we're allowed to finish and do what we need to do, and that's basically
Ed, did you
it.
get your question?
Now, how is the house right now exposed and
Oh,
structurally unstable?
because of the front, we had to, they went structurally, they had to build up the walls, and there's it doesn't
So
show
the front is unstable, not the back. It's nothing to do with this back variance, it's something with the front.
The variance is for the back, but because, I mean,
I got it.
this column is not poured, it's not really structurally sound. In the front, we had to tie into the existing roof, so we had to expose part of the
So
roof.
the stop work order didn't let you finish that on the front, that's the structural instability. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the fact that this column is not
Well,
solid.
yeah, but I was trying to make sure there's nothing in the backyard that's structurally
Oh,
unstable.
no.
Okay,
No.
fine, thank you, okay.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
I do have a question for Eddie.
That's fine.
So who approved the plan without realizing we needed the variance?
Well, it's less, at this stage, it's less of an autopsy of the process and
I'm
more
just
anybody.
confirming that we as a city approved the plan
We-
without realizing, not, I didn't mean it by that, I'm asking to confirm, did we approve a plan?
At
Not
all stages,
understand.
there was approval without necessarily, at some point, it became clear there wasn't a full realization on the city
Who
side.
did, on the city side as well as
Yeah,
on the
it was
homeowner's side?
not, staff's approach was, it was not a failure to disclose as much as a failure to appreciate or
Mistake.
understand.
Okay, thank you. No more questions.
Anyone else have any questions at this time? I'm going to have you sit for just a few minutes, and we're going to open for public comment. If anyone has any comments at this time for the 378 La Hacienda Drive, please come forward.
Ma'am, I don't believe you stood earlier when I was swearing people in. Would you mind raising your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give before this body is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Please state your name and address for the record, and then you may proceed.
Thank you very much. My name is Lydia Trumbull. I live at 381 La Hacienda Drive, and I just want to say thank you all for being here and for everything you do for our beautiful city, and thank you all commissioners and Ms. Mayor. I've been living here, as you all know, probably for the last 6 years, and I absolutely love it. And I've had the opportunity to meet Louis and his beautiful wife Alexandra, who are my neighbors. We live about 4 houses apart from each other. And I just wanted to say that both my husband and I, my husband Chris was here a little earlier with me at 5 o'clock for the meeting. And we are very happy that we're really gentrifying La Hacienda Drive. It's turning into some beautiful, beautiful homes. You know, some of the older homes are really being updated, and we are in favor of this project. Not only are we in favor of this project, but we really felt bad initially when we understood the ramifications of what had happened, how things were approved. We've gone through some nightmares as far as permitting ourselves with our renovation project, and we know how difficult it can be. So having said that, And also given the fact that his structure is compromised. We have walked the property, we've seen it by boat as well, and it's not going to be enclosed, and we're all for it, and it looks very, very nice, and it looks like the back will actually be quite open, and being that they're going to go ahead and move forward and approve the covenant as well with any further structure with enclosing that, I definitely give my approval, and my husband's as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lucille. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward at this time? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing, and you can come back up and...
Does staff have anything else
Staff,
they wish to say?
anything? I always want to not let the staff, I don't know what that is about me, but I'm going to try to do better.
And just as last time, Mary, you and your plan have the final word on that.
Certainly, thank you. I just wanted to thank the commission and the staff and just reiterate that they are intending to be citizens and residents of the area for quite some time. They're not leaving, so thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. At this time, do we have a motion for BOA case number 2021-06?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
Second, any comments from the maker?
Yeah, I think the hardship has to do with the shape of the lot.
I agree.
think that the roof line extending in that direction doesn't create necessarily a new variance. It's continuing the roof line. And given those two hardships, I'm not sure, I understand the communication about the enclosure, but I'm not sure that that makes a difference
No.
from our point of view in terms of the easement itself, or the variance itself. So, and the fact that they've begun construction isn't really a hardship, it's unfortunate, but that doesn't really affect my thinking. I think it's more about the roof line and the property shape. Thank you.
So any other comments?
Any other comments from the rest? No. Okay, with that, Deanne, would you please call the roll?
Vice Mayor McCall,
Yes.
Commissioner Houseberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Hannah,
Yes.
Commissioner Hufnagel,
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes. Motion carries, yay. Get that big closet, you go, girl.
More shoes.
Yay. All about that. We are on agenda item number 7. We have no other legislative matters. Number 8, we do not have any discussion. Work session items, and is there any other business to come before this board tonight? I just want to reiterate that we do have a meeting. Vice Mayor Hofnagel, excuse me. Commissioner Hofnagel will not be there.
You're a vice
on
mayor.
July 20, 2021.
You're a vice mayor.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I won't be able to attend that meeting.
That's it, and that's your excuse.
No vice mayor for you.
And with that meeting, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for a lovely evening.